Okay, Phil is the author of numerous children's picture books, including Shoeless Joe and Black Betsy, The Shot Heard Round the World, and the just-released The Unforgettable Season. He is the co-creator of the New York Times bestselling chapter book series Sluggers, a former middle school teacher in the New York City public schools. Phil is also the co-executive director of the NOLA Tree, a teen volunteer service organization. So please help me in welcoming Phil Bildner.
All right.
Season by me, by Phil. Oh, this is a hardcover book. Here's something cool. Before we print a book out in hardcover, we print it out in paperback. This is called a galley or an arc. And the reason why we print it out in paperback first is because if we make a mistake in the book, it is very expensive to fix, and the publishers, the big corporations that like to sell lots and lots of books and make lots and lots of money, they don't like to have to fix those mistakes, so everybody checks it over to make sure we don't make mistakes, and they have to print out a few of these, then we print it out in hardcover. And I'm going to show you a mistake that we actually caught after I read the book. Alright, The Unforgettable Season. The story of Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, and the record-setting summer of 1941. Baseball fans know their numbers. Whether they root for the Reds, Royals, Rockies, or Rays, those who love America's national pastime have always been aware of the time-tested measuring sticks inscribed in the record books. 60, 2,130, 714. Yes, baseball fans know their numbers. And they also know that all records, even the unbreakable ones, will one day fall. But two of the biggest still have not. And incredibly, these two records were both set in 1941 during one unforgettable season. Cool, this works really well as a read aloud. I can tell already. So I'm going to have fun. I hope you all do too. Joe DiMaggio played the game with the grace of a clipper ship, so they called him the Yankee Clipper. Yet even though he'd already led the New York Yankees to 4 World Series titles, Joe DiMaggio still hadn't won over the hearts of the Yankee faithful. Early in his career, he dared to ask for a pay raise, and as a result, New Yorkers thought he was selfish and ungrateful. Some even booed him when he stepped on the field. 1 month into the 41 season, the New York Yankees were in the middle of an awful slump. "Yank attack, weakest in years," screamed the headline in the New York Journal-American. Then, on Thursday, May 15, Joe stroked a base hit off Chicago White Sox pitcher Eddie Smith, and with one swing of the bat, the Yankees' entire season turned around. For on that warm spring afternoon in the Bronx, the streak began. Ted Williams, the very same day, Ted Williams also started a hitting streak less than 200 miles away in Boston's Fenway Park. Just 2 years earlier, Ted Williams had taken the baseball world by storm when he put together the greatest rookie season ever. The Splendid Splinter, which he was called because he was tall and slender like a piece of wood, blasted 31 homers and hit a whopping .327. Yet by 1941, many in Red Sox Nation had grown tired of the prickly outfielder. Some fans thought he was lazy and needed to always try his hardest. They suggested he be traded to another team, even to the rival Yankees. But from the middle of May to the middle of June, Ted hit in every single game, raising his batting average to .430. At the time, no player had hit above .400 for an entire season in more than 10 years, which many baseball experts considered the greatest hitting feat in all of baseball. Joe DiMaggio's streak was still growing strong when Ted's streak ended on June 8th after 23 games. Better yet, Joe's incredible run had propelled the Yankees into first place. Day after day, Joltin' Joe, another nickname because he smacked the ball so hard it was like an electric jolt, hit and hit and hit. 28 straight games, 29 games, 30 games, which broke the all-time Yankees team record. On front stoops and street corners all over the Bronx and on playgrounds and schoolyards throughout Joe's hometown of San Francisco, the same question was being asked. Did he get a hit? Les Brown and his orchestra even recorded a song about the streak. Night and day, Joltin' Joe DiMaggio was heard on the radio. Now, there's a song, but I am certainly not going to sing it, so I'm going to say it like a poem. From coast to coast, that's all you hear of Joe the one-man show. He's glorified the horsehide sphere, Joe DiMaggio. On June 28th, the Yankees traveled to Philadelphia's Shibe Park to face the Athletics. Before the game, A's pitcher Johnny Babbage boasted, "I know how to handle DiMaggio." Babbage vowed to stop Joe's streak with a simple strategy. He wouldn't give the Yankee Clipper anything good to hit. If Babbage walked Joe in each at-bat, the streak would be over. But in the middle of the game, Joe swung at a pitch far out of the strike zone. Smack! Base hit up the middle. Joe hit the ball so hard, Babbage never even saw it pass right between his own legs. Meanwhile, during the Sunday afternoon doubleheader in Boston, Ted Williams smacked 4 hits and scored 4 runs as the Red Sox swept Chicago. A day later, the Detroit Tigers came to town for a twin bowl, and once again, Ted put on a hitting show. In the first game, he belted a game-winning home run, and during the nightcap, he reached base 6 times, keeping his average above the magic 400 mark. "You're tearing the you're tearing the cover off the ball, Teddy," said teammate Dom DiMaggio, who knew better than anyone. Not only did he play alongside Ted in the Red Sox outfield, but he also happened to be Joe DiMaggio's little brother. "Keep it up, and you'll hit 400 for the season." "That's what those boys are writing in the papers, Dommy," Williams replied, "but I'll let my timber do the talking." A week before the All-Star break, Joe DiMaggio and the Yankees faced the Washington Senators in a doubleheader. If Joe managed to get a hit in both games, he'd break George Sisler's American League record of 41 games. That afternoon, none of Joe's teammates dared mention the streak to him, fearing they could accidentally jinx him. They didn't have to worry. In the opener, Joe stroked a double to left field, tying the all-time mark. With just 1 hit in the nightcap, the record would be his. But between games, the unthinkable happened. "Where's my bat?" Joe asked fellow slugger Tommy Heinrich. "It was just right." A Yankee fan, who really couldn't have been much of a fan at all, had stolen it. Each time the Yankee Clipper stepped to the plate, he couldn't hit a lick. Waiting in the on-deck circle late in the game, Joe realized he only had one more chance. Heinrich came over and held out his lumber. "This bat has a hit in it," Heinrich said. "It looks familiar," Joe said. "It should," Heinrich replied. "It's one of yours. You lent this one to me a few weeks ago when I was in a slump." Wagging his own bat, Joltin' Joe stepped to the plate and smacked a single, setting the American League record. Afterwards, George Sisler sent Joe a telegram. "I'm glad a real hitter broke it. Keep it up." The next week was the All-Star game in Detroit. For a change, Ted and Joe would hit together back-to-back in the American League lineup and play side-by-side in the same outfield. From the Atlantic to the Pacific, people tuned their radios to the Midsummer Classic. Down by 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th, the American Leaguers loaded the bases. Joe stepped to the plate with a chance to be the hero and win the game with a hit. Instead, he wrapped a surefire double play ball. Luckily, the second baseman's relay throw to first base sailed wide. Joe was safe, and 1 run scored, but the American League was still down by 1. Up to the plate stepped Ted Williams, the splendid splinter. Boom! The ball soared high and deep down the right field line. Without a doubt, the ball was going to land in the upper deck of Briggs Stadium, but would it stay there? Yes! Ted had hit the game-winning 3-run home run. Ted was mobbed at home plate by his fellow All-Stars. The first to greet him was his Yankee rival and friend, Joe DiMaggio. "The greatest thrill of my life," Ted exclaimed when he reached the dugout. And this painting right here, just so you know, is featured in the Washington Post tomorrow, in the Sunday edition of the Washington Post, so it's pretty cool, so I'm very excited about that. So, just thought I'd say that. After the All-Star break, Joe picked up where he left off. His record-setting hitting streak rolled on. 49 games, 50 games, 51 games, 52 games. Radio broadcasts were interrupted for DiMaggio bulletins. During long meetings at the Capitol, congressmen waited for the latest DiMaggio updates. How long could he keep it going? On a muggy night in Cleveland, Joe went hitless through the first 7 innings of the game against the Indians. With the bases loaded in the top of the 8th, the Yankee Clipper came up to bat with one final chance to keep the streak alive. The vendors stopped selling peanuts and ice cream, and the sellout crowd that packed Municipal Stadium stood and cheered. Even the Cleveland fans waved signs supporting Joe. Joe smacked a hard ground ball to shortstop Lou Boudreau. The ball took a wicked hop, but the future Hall of Famer fielded the ball barehanded and turned it into a double play. On July 17th, after 56 games, the streak was finally over. I'm not happy that I failed to get a hit, Joe told reporters after the game. I guess relieved would be a better word. Although I haven't been under much strain, there always was a little pressure until I got a hit. Almost instantly, the baseball world turned to Ted Williams. Up in Boston, the splendid splinter was sizzling through the hot summer months, batting .429 in July and .402 in August. During the last week of the season, the Red Sox traveled to Washington for a series against the Senators. But in those 3 games, Ted managed just 2 hits in 11 trips to the plate. On the season's final day, heading into a doubleheader against the Athletics, his batting average had dipped to .399.55. Do you want to sit today? Red Sox manager Joe Cronin asked Ted before that Sunday's first game. If you do, you got your .400 record. A .399.55 average would be rounded up to .400 for the record books. No, Ted replied. I'm going to play. If I'm going to be a .400 hitter, I'm not going to slip in through the back door. I'm not going to do it sitting on the bench. I'm playing both games. All right. Ted went 4 for 5 in the first game, and then in the nightcap, he added 2 more hits. In his last at-bat of the season, the splendid splinter smacked a double that rocketed off the loudspeaker horns atop the outfield wall and ricocheted all the way back to the infield. Ted finished the season batting a whopping .406. He'd done it. What a thrill, Williams declared afterwards in the clubhouse. I wasn't saying anything about it before the game, but I never wanted anything harder in my life. Seven decades have now passed, and not a single player since Joe DiMaggio has come close to hitting in 56 straight games. Only Pete Rose managed to get within a dozen games of Joe's record, hitting in 44 straight in 1978. Since Ted Williams, no one has approached batting .400 in a single season either. In the strike-shortened 1994 season, Tony Gwynn hit .394, and in 1980, George Brett batted .390. Yet in the end, neither could reach the mark. But the next time you visit the ballpark or tune to a game on television, keep your eyes wide open. Because even though it's been more than 70 years since Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio put on their hitting show for the ages, you never know when a player just might start a quest to bat .400 or begin a record-breaking hitting streak. It could be this baseball season, or perhaps next year. But one day, there will be another season as unforgettable as 1941. Only nobody knows when.